Hello everybody, welcome to FreightWaves Now. I'm FreightWaves meteorologist Nick Austin. Chad Prevost has the day off today, so I'm going to be talking to you about weather here in just a few minutes. We're also going to talk to Zach Strickland about what's been going on over the weekend, also kind of month to month, year to year as far as market shares and freight volumes across the country, and he'll give us a little more of a deep dive kind of into what's been going on with that and maybe a little recap of what happened over the weekend. But we'll talk about weather first. We don't have a lot of major weather events across the country today, which is good, but we do have some areas of rain and snow, and some of those areas of rain and snow will be causing more flooding problems across parts of the nation's heartland. But we'll start out west in California as well as up into Oregon. Along the I-5 corridor today, through Oregon and into Northern California, there's going to be a lot of wet weather. Pretty steady rain there all day, and that may last into tonight as well. And also across parts of Florida from around Jacksonville down to Gainesville, Orlando area, there are going to be a lot of spots of heavy rain, possibly some thunderstorms, but nothing that'll be severe. There probably won't be a lot of real gusty winds or large hail with that, but certainly some problems along I-10, Interstate 4, parts of Interstate 95 as well. And we have this one area of snow and rain that's been moving across South Dakota today, right along the I-90 corridor. And some of that snow has been heavy at times. The rain has been a little bit heavy at times. That's not really a big deal. The problem is part of South Dakota has seen flooding along the James River and some of the river's tributaries as well. So with that precipitation today, along with a warming trend as weather dries out through the week, talking about highs across parts of South Dakota in the 60s and 70s by Friday and Saturday later this week, that's going to cause more snow melt during the course of the week too. So that'll add to flooding along the James River. There's more flooding ongoing this week along the Missouri River and a lot of other tributaries across Iowa, Nebraska, northern Missouri as well, and even up into Minnesota and along the Minnesota River. So that's going to be ongoing all week. Union Pacific Railroad as well as BNSF still have some tracks and subdivisions that are out of service, but they're slowly getting some of those tracks back on. They're going to keep working on that this week. And keep checking State Department of Transportation information, because across parts of western Missouri, I-29, some areas of I-80 in Nebraska and other interstates in that region, there are going to be lane closures here and there, some exits in both directions that are just going to be completely closed off because of ongoing flooding. So that's the situation with the weather. We're going to scoot on over here. We're going to go talk to Zach Strickland, our Sultan of Sonar, about what's going on in the data. And what we're kind of seeing, we're going to be, I guess, focusing a lot on kind of year to year and month to month information as far as market shares, volumes, things like that. So what are you seeing, Zach?
Yeah, so thanks, Nick. Happy Monday.
That's right. It is Monday, April Fool's Day,
Also,
but no fooling about what's going on. So This is serious stuff.
So I like to, every time we close a quarter, I kind of like to look back to see what's gone on in the previous month, previous 3 months, also year over year, just to kind of give a quick check to see what point of reference is for this time of year. So I've got the outbound tender market share monthly change pulled up in today's map. And what that is basically telling us how much the market has changed or shifted over the past month in terms of volume. If you see out here on the West Coast, you've got our basically the two markets that have been driving the majority of the freight volume over the last month.
Going down.
Yeah, these are actually decreasing in market share value. And doesn't necessarily mean that volume itself is going down, absolutely. It just means that it's losing market share. So they're getting smaller
relative to the rest of the country,
to the rest
correct?
of the country.
Okay.
So that's why I like to look at this, just to see if we're starting to balance out a little bit more. A lot of these big markets like this take up a lot of space in the market. So, and these guys right here, which we'll see here in a little bit, have actually been very overheated in terms of outbound volume this year so far. So we're starting to see this kind of shift, and these blues are the ones that are going to make up for it. So out here in Denver and Colorado, we're starting to see things pick up in El Paso, coming out of the West Coast, and really what I'm looking for is anything out here east of the Mississippi. This is the market that's going to, or the areas that are going to really drive consistent freight volumes throughout the year.
Like Atlanta, right?
Atlanta,
that would be one of them.
Chicago, Harrisburg over here in the megalopolis. All of these areas are the ones that we need these guys to start pulling their weight, because year over year, and we're going to see that here in a minute, they're really kind of falling off.
But that's not necessarily where we're seeing the shifts. I mean,
no.
Colorado, Idaho.
Yeah, I mean
that's fairly unusual, right?
Yeah, no, it is, especially this time of year, especially up here. The Pacific Northwest has been overheated as well. If we go to the next chart, kind of going to show you why this is year over year, why this is happening or where it's happening. So this is a chart of outbound tender volume index yearly change. So this is our percent change versus the same date last year. So on April 1st last year, we were seeing 70% less volume out of Los Angeles, California.
That's a big change.
Huge change. So Ontario, 55.13, Seattle's 26% up, Fresno is 53%, and Salt Lake City, just because I felt like that was kind of an outlier, Salt Lake City is even up. So all the volume has shifted to the west.
Incredible stuff.
A lot of the tariff pull forwards, everything's been pushed out and like redistributed in warehouses. It's almost like a positioning. A lot of potential energy sitting on the West Coast. So if they ever do decide to start moving off the coast over there, you know, all these trucks are they're sitting there waiting for this freight. So right now, the West Coast, huge year-over-year increases. And if we go to the next one, this is going to be the East Coast volume. So some of our bigger markets in the East Coast, like Joliet, which is just to the south of Chicago, Indianapolis, Harrisburg, Dallas, all showing year over year, they're not as impressive. You got one right here at a 1%. That's the Dallas, Texas market, which you can see here about the borderline for zero, and they've all been very submerged. They're starting to pick back up though, coming out into the end of the month, but still not. This isn't going to cut it if we're going to have a nice kind of evenly balanced freight market. These carriers out there are not going to like having all this volume just sitting on one side of the country. I mean, it's very difficult to, if we ever do start seeing these start to pull back up, all these carriers are sitting out in Los Angeles, Southern California area. They have to come all the way across the country. There's not a lot of cities or freight markets in between Los Angeles and Atlanta, for instance. They're going to have to come, you know, 3,000 miles across the country just to get a long haul, and there may not be the freight that gets them there. So it's a high cost situation in terms of getting it back across the country, repositioned. So when these markets, if ever, they do start picking back up, that's a costly trip.
So these two, this chart and the one we just saw before it, just previous to it, are those two charts in what you might perceive as a normal or average freight year, that they would typically be reversed as far as those year-over-year numbers?
Oh, no. Now, what you want to see, if you're expecting the freight market to be seasonal, is these to be sitting right around the zero mark. Like if you want to say that I know what the freight's going to do every year, these are going to hover right around zero. You're not going to see these 16% down, and you're certainly not going to see 55% up. That to me is a big sign that the dynamic in the freight market has changed. Even though capacity is plentiful in the market, tender rejections are still very subdued. And that's just simply due to the fact that the market has been very stable. All the trucks have been going to the West Coast. They haven't had a reason to leave, so they're just sitting there covering the same freight over and over again. So yeah, you would, year over year, you tend to see you want to see probably 3 to 5% increases, not in market share, but in volume. That's what you would like to see, just in general. Just to show seasonal. And if we go to the
good information.
If we go to the last chart, I kind of wanted to bring it home by comparing the national perspective in this. So I've got the outbound tender volume index for the United States pulled up, overlaid on the outbound tender rejection index, year over year change for both of them. So what this is telling us,
blue line is
the blue line
rejection index, right?
It's the rejection index. We are 19% lower, or actually we're 1,900 basis points lower on the tender rejection index. So last year we were sitting around 26% tender rejection rate. This year we're around 6% on the tender rejection rate. So everybody is accepting their loads, is what I'm saying. And then over here on the orange line, a 0.9%. Now that is a true percentage increase. So we're just under 1% increase on national volumes. And like I showed you in the earlier charts, it's all out west. So it's sitting on the West Coast. So the carriers and brokers that are used to seeing these Atlanta volumes or Chicago volumes, it's actually going to feel a lot slower there versus year over year versus the West Coast, which is actually a lot more heated, a lot more activity there. But you see that volume has actually increased year over year, is the point, whereas capacity, tender rejection rates are much lower. So carriers, you're going to see a lot of downward rate pressure year over year, even though volume is actually up. And that's just simply due to the fact that the market is in relative equilibrium. And everybody knows what they're going to do, and they have plenty of trucks to cover it.
Zach, thank you very much. Excellent information. We hope that it helps you out today and helps you make some wise decisions. And remember, you can find the FreightWaves Now video. It's every business day. It goes to our website, FreightWaves.com, 4 o'clock each business day in the afternoon. And you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel and get the videos there. So don't forget to do that as well. We thank you for joining us today, and we hope to see you again tomorrow.